Welcome back to Luminary Leaders Live. I'm your host, Shelly Harrison. And today I have a wonderful guest, somebody that I've been working with for a little while. And we want to give a shout out to Paul Kreider for introducing us. Hakeem Rahim is next to me. And today we're going to be opening up the conversation about mental health. And we are streaming on multiple platforms on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, and it's going to be uploaded to all of the podcast apps too. So if you're working out or you've got your ear pods on, or earbuds, I should say, right? I don't think it's earpods anymore. Earbuds, but if you have them in, and you're going on a brisk walk, you've got to listen to this episode. All right. So Hakeem, I want to welcome you to Luminary Leaders Live. Thank you so much for being here.
Absolutely. Thank you, Shelly. Thank you for this platform.
Yeah. And I definitely think that the conversation today, because we are talking about mental health, you are an extraordinary speaker. You have a story that just really can resonate with a lot of people, across the globe, because of the fact that, what you experienced. Do you want to kind of share a little bit about your story, and then we'll kind of get right into that and talk a little bit deeper on mental health and kind of how, some of the ways that people can really make a difference in their life by some of the things that you teach and share.
Absolutely. So again, thank you for this. And this is a topic it impacts and affects so many people. So what is my journey? What is my story? First, my background is in mental health from undergraduate studies. And the reason why I went into that, I was the first African-American male valedictorian in my high school's history, originally from New York, Long Island, New York. Went off to Harvard University at 17. Like so many young adults, so excited about the college experience back then, right? As times change, but it was a new experience, a fresh experience for me. But unfortunately, during my first few weeks there, boom, I was hit with a panic attack. Now, this is 1998, no conversation about mental health, no conversation about mental illness. So I just thought, I didn't know what I was experiencing, right? I went back to my dorm room, I curled up under my bed and didn't realize the racing heart, the somersaults in my stomach, the sweaty palms, all the things I was experiencing, that actually was a symptom of underlying condition and something deeper. So that was my first foray with mental health challenges. Later on that year, the end of my freshman year, I had my first experience with mania. Now, what does mania look like? That was a lot of racing thoughts, seeing things that weren't real, hearing things that weren't real. And thankfully, I was able to, my parents came and got me, they picked me up. But of course, 1998, there's no understanding about mental illness.
Right.
But thankfully, they said, something's wrong. We don't know what's wrong with our son, but they sent me to Grenada. That's where my family's from. They said, hey, our son went to Harvard. He had a tough year. He might just be stressed. So those are the first two forays into my journey with mental health challenges. And then I came back to school in 2000. And at the end of my sophomore year now, in the end of 2000, I had my second manic episode. And this is where I was hospitalized. I was hospitalized for 2 weeks at a hospital in Queens. After that time, I began taking meds, and really that's where my journey towards this process of healing, discovery, and then of course now sharing the journey, knowing that number one, you are more than your label, knowing that if you do get the right help, it's possible for healing. And we'll talk a little bit more about my journey currently, and some of the things that I've done over the last 10 years as an advocate, as a speaker, as somebody that deeply cares about people, because a lot of people are suffering when I believe it doesn't have to be suffering. It can be challenged, but not have challenges, challenges, but not be challenged. And I think a lot of people are going through a challenged life, first having challenges, because we're not adequately equipped around mental illness and mental health and mental well-being.
Yeah, and back when you had your first episode, I mean, I could not even imagine. Your friends probably didn't know what was going on, because it was a very personal thing, and here you are not really knowing, gosh, what's happening, and I think a lot of people, and I have some friends, who started college and they had similar episodes with, just panic attacks and, really, I mean, deep, 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 um, you know, issues that they didn't understand what was going on.
Sure.
But again, I think, just by what you've done over your lifetime since that time, I know that there are some opportunities that you've had where you've been able to go before the US Senate. So let's talk about that a little bit.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
So in 2012, I started speaking openly about my journey. I was one of the first people to testify before Congress and Senate for the mental health laws that were being passed, the original laws being passed. And
Yeah.
in 2016, I was the first mental health ambassador for the United States, and I went to Jamaica.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, to Jamaica to talk about mental health in the Caribbean, and really sharing that. My family's background is from the Caribbean, so it was a real honor for me to be able to speak to folks who are part of my heritage, part of my background, and sometimes
Yeah.
more stigma in communities of color and African American, Caribbean American communities. Because we can't see what our challenges are with mental health, we think it's not real. So being able to say, hey, there's a face and there's a name to somebody who's had these experiences, and there's the other side to it, and it's an ongoing journey. So I've also spoken to over 100,000 students over the last 10 years, over the last decade.
Amazing.
And yep, yeah, and all of this to say that, yes, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I just can't imagine what was going through your mind, impacting all of these young kids who, that they've got a lot of things that they're coping with in high school or middle school. And I mean, to be able to have that opportunity to change lives, I mean, that is extraordinary.
Yeah, exactly. And it's so many young adults now, and even then struggling with identity. Identity and who am I? And what I realized is that that I am phrase, when I was saying that I am bipolar versus I have a challenge. And now what I realize is that embracing a healthy sense of self, a healthy identity, that's where my true healing came, and not just saying, I'm looking to cure my mental illness, but
Mhm.
how do I have a healthy identity? How do I have a healthy sense of self? And in having a healthy sense of self, really healing from that space and that place.
Wow. Yeah, and that's something that I know when you speak, you share your story and you have talked to so many different audiences. And when you think of, getting in front of an audience, Hakeem, when you look at the faces in the audience, you don't really know, who's coping with mental health or, mental illness or whatever they're dealing with, whether it's PTSD or any kind of condition. Um, what is, for example, when you get up there, what is the most profound message that you really want people to know so that it kind of puts them at ease and makes them realize that I'm okay, and
Yeah,
it's going to be fine.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I sometimes I share that I don't have all the answers, right? And I don't think anybody does, and but what I do know, what has been working for me on my journey and tweaking along the way. And one of the things I say is that three things that really helped me on my journey. Number one is knowing that you know there wasn't something wrong with me. It's just something I didn't know. Right. So I say three things. Number one was a lack of information that kind of kept me trapped in a space of brokenness at times. Number two
Mhm.
was a lack of acceptance. So really not accepting certain things about myself or about what I was going through. And number
Mhm.
three was a lack of choice. So many times I didn't choose to know that I had to change. So some of the things that I talk about is, for me, I realized it wasn't a character deficit. There wasn't something wrong with me. It was a learning deficit. It was something I didn't know. And that's something that I share. It's like, you know, maybe there's a form of therapy. Maybe there's something with your diet. Maybe there's an exercise routine that you may need to add, which can improve your life, right? And all these well-being, all these tools are tools that I've incorporated that has helped my overall well-being, right? And sometimes acceptance. I say acceptance can be a bridge, a barrier, or a border. So how can acceptance, a lack of acceptance in my life at times, has made it difficult for me to get the help that I needed, whether it was, you know, having a conversation with a loved one or with my spouse, or having, you know, a conversation with a doctor, or with a friend. So sometimes the lack of acceptance, but how do you make acceptance a bridge? How do you use that bridge between awareness and action? You can know something is wrong, but unless you take that step to act on it, you may stay in the same condition that you're in. And then choosing, I also talk about choosing. We all have a choice, but only we can choose to change. And one of the things that I learned, again, I talk about being hospitalized. I was hospitalized again back in 2021 for the second time in my life, in a psychiatric hospital. And what I realized is that in that lowest moment, it was on me to change, right? I had to choose to change. I had to look at where I was and had to accept that there was more help that I needed. There were things that I had to look at, and I had to accept that there were some things that I did not know. But all these things, choosing, making sure that we accept, and having the right information, knowing that there's nothing wrong with us. I think that's one of the things that I try to share as much as possible, and reminding myself there's nothing wrong with me. There may be things I do not know. There might be things I haven't accepted, and there may be things that I haven't chosen in order for me to change in my life.
Yeah, and that's great information for our audience to know, because when you think of your own character, you know, I mean, there's probably some level of, you know, shame, but it really shouldn't be, because there are things happening in everyone's lives. And, you know, sometimes it could be, like you said, you had a learning deficit, which, you know, that could be something that, you know, hinders, you know, a lot of kids and different people that, you know, that are trying to run businesses, or, you know, CEOs of companies. And I think just being aware of, you know, what those coping skills are, right? And I know that you do a lot of work with NAMI too. And NAMI is a great organization. Do you want to talk a little bit about your work with NAMI?
Sure. And just to clarify, one of the things I said in terms of knowing that we're not broken, it's knowing that our character, who we are, there's nothing wrong with us, but it may be some information that we may be missing, that we may need to learn to improve our lives. And one of the great organizations that I worked with for a long time, and they're doing amazing work around mental health, is NAMI, National Alliance on Mental Illness. And I first found them back in 2012 when I first decided to start sharing my journey around mental illness. They have a great number of great programs, but one of them is called the In Our Own Voice program. And you get trained to tell your journey and tell your story to help others. And another great program is called Family to Family. So that's a 12-week course for family members, because, you know, one of the things that we realize is that it's not just the person who's going through the mental health challenge that is impacted, right? It's the whole entire family, the whole family, right? And again, this goes into the lack of information. Sometimes we just don't have the right information to know how to help ourselves or somebody else. So NAMI is a phenomenal organization. If you're looking to learn, if you're looking to gain insight and understanding around mental health and how to help yourself and how to help your community and
right, or your loved ones that, you know, may have some kind of, you know, unknown to you, or to whoever, but they just need that help and support and may not know how to get started.
Exactly. And that information piece is so key. It's like when you're able to label something, you can do something about it. Not label in terms of pathologize, but say, oh, this is what I was experiencing. Now I can do something about it, because that information is empowering versus, you know, a lack of clarity, a lack of understanding what you're actually experiencing.
Oh, and it can be. It absolutely can be. I know right now I'm going through a program with productive learning, and it's called EQ Mastery, and it is so intense. And I'm realizing, socially how I show up as an individual. And I think, a lot of people when you get out in the public, I think that's where the pressure sets in, because you're around a lot of people, and there are a lot of moving parts, and sometimes people, when they're in big crowds or big audiences, it's kind of hard to really get in that social situation and fit in, and
Right.
and I can, yeah, and I would imagine with, people that, experience, have mental health, where they're dealing with that, it could be overwhelming.
And that's the thing, Shelley. It's like, you know, one of the things with let's talk about anxiety. Part of
Yeah,
anxiety,
anxiety.
and,
Oh boy.
right,
Don't get me started.
right, and part of
Yeah.
it could be very well be something missing in your diet. You know, it
Yeah,
could be a
that's true.
nutrient that you're missing in your diet that is leading to your physiological symptoms, right? It could be breathing tools or techniques that you may need. It's something that you can learn. So it's not a life sentence to have anxiety or depression, but
Yeah.
it may be something that you need to learn. It may be something that you need to choose to use, right? So again, as you're taking that course, it's like, how do I show up in the world? There's
Right.
nothing wrong with me. What more can I learn to empower
Mhm.
myself? Similarly with mental health, it could be your physiology, it could be your diet, it could be, therapy, it could be, what do you need to take care of yourself and to learn a little bit more so you
Right.
can show up differently and not feel like there's something wrong with you, but what do I not yet know that can help me?
Yeah, and I like that approach because a lot of people, when they're not willing to talk about it sometimes because, it's a trust issue, but I like the way you say that because that right there just kind of puts you at ease and makes you realize that, that there is support and there's help out there, and just being with yourself and understanding, could it be a deficiency or, something else that's contributing to the anxiety or whatever, we happen to experience.
Exactly.
Yeah. And, now if we fast forward, Hakeem, you have done some extraordinary work. And I know that you are a keynote speaker. We are so just honored to represent you. And in terms of your speaking, and kind of give our audience an idea of, if they hire you to come in and speak, what they get, all the greatness that they get.
Absolutely. And again, thank you for your platform, what you're doing and elevating and amplifying voices. And it's really great to be a part of your team and what we're doing together. So one of the things is I also do spoken word poetry. So I've been doing poetry for the last 25 years. And the arts is such an important part for healing. It's such an important part of self-expression. And I believe transformation. So one of the things I do is include poetry and arts in my work. Another thing is developing our healthy I am, right? So I say, what is your core healthy I am? And finding that healthy I am for me, it might be different for you, but when we can anchor in, not in our brokenness, but who am I and how do I want to show up? That can be a source of strength. So I talk about that with the audiences and assist with identifying that. And then, of course, we talk about information acceptance and choice. Knowing that it's this, again, there's nothing wrong with us, but how do we have that right information? How do we accept something that we may not be accepting, and how do we choose? And that choosing to be from being a better, I speak on college campuses, I speak with companies and corporations, with schools, nonprofits. So all these spaces, bringing the artistry, because I really believe it's a shift in perspective and perception of who we are and who we can be that leads to behavioral change. So I'm just so grateful for my journey. Not very many people are hospitalized or diagnosed with bipolar disorder. Not very many people get hospitalized twice or go to Harvard or have these experiences. But I
Exactly.
know, right,
Yes.
and I had to leave Harvard for 2 years and came back. But the reason why I'm saying all of these things is that I know that there's a service here.
That's
And,
wonderful.
we all go through our journeys in order to be able to come and say, here's what I've learned. How can I serve? And through sharing my journey, through sharing some of the tools that I've learned, that's the key thing I want to communicate is how can we all serve and become better through what we've gone through. And that's one of my key pieces.
Oh, most definitely. And there's a huge need for, having someone like you come up and speak because, not only your educational background, but the fact that you have gone through the experiences that you have and you are able to really help people understand your methodologies so that they can better cope with, like you said, it could be any number of things that could be causing this situation. And going to a doctor might not be the right answer. It could be just really looking internally and getting the support that you need from a talk that you give, or if you're working with folks. And I think that's, it's great that you're doing this work, Hakeem, really, because it's important and it's needed. And our country, I mean, we've got so many things that we have to deal with now as, in our communities. So I applaud you. And I love that you do the poetry. So maybe next time when we have you on the show, I'd love you to share some
Exactly.
poetry. I mean, that is kind of cool that you do that. And so when audiences hire you, they get your poetry as well, which is pretty neat.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we've come to the end of the show, Hakeem, and I would love for you to just kind of share with our audience maybe one thing that you'd like to leave them with and just, reassure them, or just something that you'd like to share.
Yeah, again, one of the biggest things for me was that, again, knowing that there was something I did not know, not that there was something wrong with me. And
Mhm.
if we carry that forward, that core belief. And another thing that I also talk about is that, it's not my fault, but it is my responsibility. How do I
Yeah.
learn to take care of myself, and how do you learn to take care of others, but not blame yourself or blame others? And it's, no, nobody's mastered it, nobody's gonna master it, but just having these, sort of tools or sayings or mantras even,
Mhm.
have been helpful for me, may be helpful for somebody else to walk with on their journeys as they heal and help others in their lives.
Yeah. Well, that is beautiful. And again, to our audience, if you would like to arrange to have Hakeem come speak for your audiences, and really, there's a variety of different audiences that you can speak at, Hakeem. Whether it's the universities, high schools, groups of entrepreneurs. I mean, really, it's kind of endless, right?
Correct.
'Cause
Correct.
it's among us all. So we
Correct.
can all
Correct.
benefit by having you come out and speak. Well, thank you so much for being on Luminary Leaders Live, Hakeem. It's been a pleasure, and I'm so happy that you were able to share your story and really give some tools and techniques that people can use. And again, we were streaming on multiple platforms, and this will also be available, uploaded onto all the podcast apps. So we want our audience to know that. So when you're working out and you want to really get some inspiration, make sure you listen to this episode. So with that, we want to say thank you for joining us today. Remember to subscribe to Luminary Leaders Live. And Hakeem, again, keep doing what you're doing and all the greatness that you're doing to help our world. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Shelley.
Thank you.